And we are live. I don't know, is this the 12th episode of the Sound Advice live stream and podcast? Do I have my numbers right, guys?
No, I think it's like 14.
Yeah, I think
it's got to be
15.
It's got to be divisible by 3 because I was the third one to
15 then.
So it's got to be 15, right? This has got to be 15 then.
Yeah.
Well, I am Justin, the DIY audio guy. We're on the DIY audio guy channel tonight, and I'm here with these two awesome guys. We have over here on this side over here is Nick from Toids DIY Audio. Nick, tell them what's going on.
What is going on?
And down here we have Rob, a high five Vega, Mr. Negative 12 dB tonight. Tell us what's going on and why are you down by 12 dB?
Yo, man, we're trying to keep it quiet, keep the road noise out, have some. We don't want no flow, so we're minus 12 dB tonight.
Hey, y'all, we already got our first super chat. Power Hog Audio, Scott down there. Scott's just north of Atlanta, I think. Is that right, Rob?
I'm not exactly sure. I think so. You'll have to tell us in the chat.
I'm really, tell us in the chat. I think he's just outside of Atlanta. So if y'all who don't know, they're starting a new company, and they were on Rob's show with which one was that?
Wait,
Rob? Which one?
Did he say? Am I reading that right? The product launch is Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday.
Dude, that's awesome.
So.
Yeah, we wish you the best of luck. We hope that you sell a gazillion tons of whatever it is you've got, those awesome amplifiers. And we hope you have a really good launch because I know how stressful it is to start a business like that, which is why I don't do it.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll have to tell the after show my experience in business. It's I had some early failures. I'll have to tell those sometime when we do our after show. But we wish you the best of luck. Is that next week?
That's next
week.
Yeah,
next week.
We'll talk about my
whose
failed
channel are we
features.
on next week? We're on Rob's?
Mine, yeah.
So it's next week on Rob's channel. Yeah, that's
awesome.
Right. For all the
All
patrons, $10 and up. Yeah, that's awesome.
That's right. That's right. Looking forward to that. That's always a fun time. So our topic tonight is sound treatment of all types. And this is going to be a good show because this is what makes this neat is we have people here that are really into car and really into home. And I try just pretty much everything, boom boxes and stuff like that. Right. So I don't know where to start, guys. There's so much you could talk about with sound treatment. So when y'all want to go ahead and maybe go first?
I always say don't treat for it. It's easier.
What do you mean?
Just live with the sound?
Yeah, just live with whatever terribleness you have, and that's much easier than having to worry about the rest of the stuff that we're going to talk about today.
I think that's the wrong direction, man.
Well, I always heard easiest is best. Is that not true?
Sometimes it is.
No, obviously none of us feel that way because if we did, we wouldn't be doing this.
No, this.
Look at all the sound treatment behind Rob right now.
Yeah, that's a little bit. That's a very small portion of it. Well, is it over here? That's a very small portion of it. I have probably over 100 square foot of sound treatment just in the tiles and then the bass traps. I know you guys like the bass traps.
All right, what do you mean tiles and bass traps? Go ahead and tell us what you're talking about.
So these acoustic foam, I have a full panel here, a full panel here, and a half panel here, and then some back here. So those are just kind of to cancel out the echo. If you have a lot of furniture in your room, you can have the same effect. But for listening, for podcasting, for doing like sound demos, I definitely want to kill the echo. This isn't going to help with any kind of like actual sound deadening or sound dampening. This is just the echo killer. And the bass traps, those are probably the most noticeable difference for echo because as soon as I put these tiles up, I noticed that you could hear the echo kind of stir in all the corners. So once I added the bass traps, I pretty much killed the echoes in here. And I do have carpet, which is another sound treatment.
Yeah, and those are, well, there's all kinds of companies that make those, but those are typically, I think you had the same ones that I have, which is Sonic Barrier, which is a company They sell them both on Amazon and Parts Express. You can buy them for pretty cheap. And they have different thicknesses, and different thicknesses are going to do different things. And one of the things that, if you guys really want to talk about deadener, and diffusion, because we're talking about diffusion and deadening, all that stuff goes into what we're going to be talking about today. And we're going to be talking about both inside the house and inside your speaker cabinets, if you're going to be building those. Talking about that too. There's a guy on YouTube that I just want to mention his name. I'll put a link down in the chat too. His name is Ethan Weiner. This guy is just a genius when it comes to diffusion and sound treatment in your rooms. He's definitely, if you're really interested, this is a guy that I would highly recommend. I'd love to get him on the show sometime if he can, because I'd want to find out like what he thinks about sound treatment in cars, because I'd be interested to hear, because he does mainly home audio, but I think it translates no matter where, what you're talking about.
Yeah, it does. And now what I'm sound treating for here is mainly for podcasts and stuff. And the good thing is, like, you guys both use shotgun mics. So that already helps you. Like, the sound treatment is not going to be nearly as needed in your area, because that shotgun mic is like a supercardioid pattern, and it's really tight on your voice. But if you're using a mic like this, the one that I have, which is a condenser mic, it likes to pick up everything. You can pick up the subtle nuance in music or a voice, but you also pick up when the dog's barking or, the reverberations around the room.
Yeah, and so we're talking a lot about reflections there. You'll see this a lot in movie theaters. You'll see them have absorptive panels all along the walls of that, and that's to get rid of the reflections you don't want. There are some reflections that have been known that our brain automatically filters out. Amir from Audio Sound Review was actually talking about that just the other day on Joe and Tell's thing. So but there is that where you're going to want to get rid of those echoes. And the easiest way to look at that is go into a cave and start yelling, or go out to an open field and yell. You'll hear those echoes. Well, the same thing happens in your room as well. And we want to try to get rid of any of those. Oh, and in your car, you want to get rid of any of those reflections that are detrimental to the sound quality.
Well, you can really hear that if you've ever, moved into a new place, new apartment, a new house, or if you've ever, say, painted a room and taken everything out. We painted the kitchen recently, and everything was out of the kitchen, and you walk in and you're ready to start moving the furniture, and you start talking, and the echo was just overwhelming in just a normal kitchen. Nothing for the sound to bounce off, nothing to break the sound up. And I would hate to have to do, like, say, recording in that environment, because it would sound terrible.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And when I done my room tour, the last one I done, I started off in the hallway speaking so they could hear me speak in the hallway, and then walked into the room, and it is very, very noticeable that my voice sounded completely different in this room than it does out in the hall.
And you can hear that on YouTube videos too. Like some of my older videos, for example, I was really far away from the mic, and you can hear it. It's not just that you hear it far away, but you can hear the sound difference. It starts like echo. You get this kind of like echoey, hollow sound when you're listening to them. And then when they get closer to the mic, all of a sudden that goes away. So what he's talking about is, if you take a look at our mics, the mic points straight at you. It doesn't capture all around. It captures directly in front. So the closer it is to here, the less room interference we have in it. So that's the same thing that you get when you measure speakers, right? When we measure speakers, we don't want the room measurement. We want the speaker measurement. So we get it as close to the speaker as we can to give it an accurate measurement of measuring, the speaker itself and not the actual room. And that's part of the reason why.
Oh, Justin, you're on mute.
Unmute myself. I'm going to talk. I recall one of the videos. I don't know how many you've done where you've showed your setup. Now, didn't you have a bunch of deadening in the closet behind you so you could sit and do your voiceovers in the closet? Is that what you had done? And you had a big curtain to hang over the door. Is that a special sound deadening curtain or just a regular curtain?
Oh, man, much like you, Justin, I will not pay these high prices for specialized stuff. Those were moving blankets from Harbor Freight. And while they're not as good, they're not as good as like a real sound blanket, but they're close enough for the money, in my opinion.
And you can buy those. You can buy actual sound blankets, and those would be handy to. They make curtains that are designed for that, so you can have curtains over your windows and close those curtains. And those are designed to block sound. I'm not sure how they do with reflections. And I've oftentimes thought about getting some of those foam panels to put on the walls in my home theater space, because I would like to make the sound better. And when I start talking to my wife about, well, I want to put some of this stuff, do a bass trap in the corner, I get that look.
Yeah.
And it's important to really mention the difference between like sound deadeners and bass traps. When we talk about these, it's interesting. When you start looking into these, different materials are going to actually attenuate different frequencies of the response. Nothing really does it all. And so it's interesting when you think about that. So with a bass trap, these typically go in the corners because that's where really your bass really can become highly problematic. Although bass in general, you're really measuring your room more than you're measuring a subwoofer or anything else. So you put these bass traps in to trap that bass from, echoing all around the room and creating big peaks and valleys in your bass response.
And that's the thing I want to know. I haven't tried a bass trap out yet. Will it indeed fix some of those nulls and those standing waves and stuff? Will you get a better sounding bass throughout the room if you put bass traps in the corner?
Well, if you place things properly, you'll get a better response anyway. Now, part of that's placement of the subwoofer itself, right? Part of that's also placement of your bass traps and your diffusion panels and things of that nature. And the last part of that, and I feel like for bass, it's got to be said, DSP, man. DSP is almost, I feel, mandatory in the bass region in a household, because you're going to have reaction with something. It doesn't matter. Something's going to react one way or the other. That's why I love that DSP LF from Parts Express. $60. And if you have an iPhone, it'll auto tune it for you, which is great. Otherwise, you use your own microphone to do that.
On a total side jag, I missed my opportunity to listen to a direct tuned system at SQology this past week, and I just got so busy I didn't get back around to it. But
oh man,
I wanted to hear it in car and see what it would sound like in car.
You're killing us. So they had one there. What? Aaron didn't bring you back over there and say, we got to go listen to this?
No, I don't even know if Aaron listened to it. I don't know if he's seen this system.
Oh, I thought you guys went together, since I saw the picture of you guys.
We met up once we got down there. But yeah, it was I thought of it when I seen it. I was like, oh, I got to come back and listen to this just for Nick.
I know, you should have. Oh well, it is what it is.
What did they have? Did they have like a mini DSP, or what did they? I don't know what all brands of products carry interface.
It was a mini DSP, and then he had a big audio interface. I'm trying to think of the brand. They're very big on USB audio interfaces, like for microphones and stuff. Scarlett
Johansson.
Yeah.
No,
something like that. But it was one of the nice ones. And yeah, I definitely missed out on that.
So, Hi-Fi Vega, you just got back from SQology, which is basically a sound quality competition and show for audio world. So, I know everyone here is wondering, what do you guys recommend for, sound deadening in a car? And what is the goal in a car? Like, what is the goal?
Well, there are two, right? And one of them is fighting the road noise, and the other one is fighting everything else about the car environment that makes it a horrible place to put a quality stereo.
So the first thing is fighting, and when you say road noise, I'm just going to say outside interference. So outside interference, and then the second thing is maybe reflective surfaces inside the vehicle. Is that what you're saying?
And rattles.
Yeah,
and
rattles. Mostly rattles, like for now, there's two different things you want to do. So if your goal is sound quality, you're going to go with the 3-step method, which me and Justin could talk about because he's done it, of course. But if you're going for SPL, that method's not really what you're looking for. You just want a lot of mass on every panel that rattles, and you want non-flexing because that's what their goal is. Now,
so you're saying mass-loaded vinyl by itself is basically what you want if you want an SPL vehicle?
You actually want CLD tiles, and the thickest ones you can get.
CLD tiles. Gotcha.
Yeah. But for normal people, you do, a CLD tile, a CCF That's to help with the panel flex, and the mass loaded vinyl is what helps with the road noise.
Right, Dev Null's got it right there. Got the jargon down pat. Good job, Dev Null there. I'll tell you my experience with trying this out. All the sound deadening and sound treatment I did in my truck, I did before I started my channel. In fact, I tried to film the process, but trying to do all that work and film at the same time was a living hell. All I had was a little bitty tiny tripod, and it wasn't working well. I didn't have a good lighting. And so what I did, because I was trying to be as scientific as possible, is I took my IMM6 and put it in my cell phone, the calibrated mic, had my teenager hold on to it, and we jumped up on the interstate and went down this terrible interstate that's near us where the road noise is just terrible. And I got in the old pickup truck and I got up to 80 miles an hour, and it was loud. It was above 90 decibels in the truck, which is one reason why I wanted to sound treat in the first place, because I was fighting a ton of road noise. And, jump onto a different interstate, smoother road, a lot quieter. And so this old pickup truck on a rough road is just crazy loud. And I did the CLD tiles, and real big heavy ones from New Concepts, their thickest one. And I was going for not the full coverage. I was just trying to add weight to the panels to get them to stop resonating. I probably ended up with about 35 to 45% coverage in the doors. And then we went back and took the same route. All right. And I kid you not, I trimmed a solid 10 decibels off of the road noise just with the CLD panels on that really rough riding interstate. Over on the smooth interstate, hardly any difference.
So this is important to say, because some people that might be listening may not necessarily care about all the other stuff. And you're saying just with CL, or just with, well, actually, Hi-Fi Vegas said, well, actually, it's Dev Null that said that mass-loaded vinyl by itself should do a pretty decent job of getting rid of just road noise. So if that's all you're concerned about, is that where you start, or would you guys recommend something else?
But this wasn't the CLD. This wasn't the mass-loaded vinyl. This was the CLD.
I know that's what I'm saying. You said CLD, and they're saying mass-loaded vinyl. So that's why I'm saying, would you recommend? What would your recommendation be?
After that experience, I would recommend CLDs on the outer, inside the door panels on the outer door skin, just because that's where the resonance is. Then I took the seats out, took the carpet out, and I got mass-loaded vinyl on the floor, and I failed at getting in the doors because it was just too thick. I couldn't get the door panel back on. I haven't touched it in 3 years now.
Sure.
And when I put the mass-loaded vinyl on the floor, I got the interior noise down to the point where the road noise was about the same as the AC on full blast.
That's good.
And it made a big difference. And the other big difference, if you're trying to get a vehicle quieter, is to maintain the vehicle. All right. Old vehicle, wheel bearings start to go, right? And when you hear wheel bearings start to go, you better do something about that, because you don't want them to go while you're driving. So, and right now it's terribly loud because I've got a bearing going out somewhere on a pump. So the next step is take it to the shop and get that fixed.
It sounds like the best idea for sound deadening is get a better car.
Yes. A Mercedes or something.
Mercedes,
really,
yeah.
And not a Cadillac, because a Cadillac is just a Buick with better options, right?
First of all, it's not a Buick. It would be a Ford, and typically like a Ford Edge with better options. But yeah, like the Lincoln MKX is a Ford Edge.
Yeah, exactly. If you really want the car to be quiet, Cadillac's quieter than a Chevy, but if you want it to be quiet.
Oh, wait, did you say Cadillac? I thought you said Lincoln.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, my bad.
Lincoln, Ford, same thing, right? So if you really want to be quiet, get a luxury car that was built quiet from the factory and built so things don't vibrate and shake off.
Here's something crazy. True story. Yeah. So I've got two Lincoln MKXs. They're both older Lincoln MKXs, but I really enjoy them. Anyway, to make a long story short, the sound system was designed by THX. And this is interesting, because what they did is they brought them in like a fully assembled one and designed the speaker system around it. And then they actually did it different wind tunnels and things of that nature. To George Lucas and his team did that. And I always found that to be fascinating. I wish more companies would do that, because most of them, they just stick a brand name speaker system on there and say, hey, look, this has Bose or Alpine or whatever on it.
We've had several people on talking about that, and we've been to Kicker and kind of seen it. So it is actually a bit more in depth than that, but the thing you have to remember is there are so many restrictions to what the car audio or the home audio company is allowed to do in there. So they give you this, these are your options. This is what you have to do it with. So some of them are better than the others, but a lot of it's limited by the manufacturer themselves.
Gotcha.
But as far as the sound, you got to think of it as a system. You know, the CLD tiles stop resonance. The CCF, the closed cell foam, decouples that panel. And then the mass load of vinyl kills the road noise. So it's like a 3-layer system if you want to do it the best way you can do it.
Now, is that to every panel in the car? So roof, doors, and floor? Or how's
Everything
that work?
but the roof, because there's no way you can get the mass loaded vinyl to stay up there.
No.
There's a product called hydrophobic melamine foam that apparently is what you want to put on the roof.
And and I know Justin can tell you, but mass loaded vinyl is not for the faint of heart. That stuff is an absolute nightmare to work with.
It is heavy. It might be 1 to 2 pounds per square foot, depending on what you get.
And it's tough to bend. You have to heat it and to get it in position right. And I just, I'll never do mass loaded vinyl again, even though it's the best. I just, you know, and a lot of times there's a product that Sonic Barrier makes where you have a CLD tile and the closed cell foam together in one piece. Makes the installation very, very simple. So you're getting the mass and you're getting the foam, so you're not getting as much panel vibrations. You know, like for your doors, perfect product in my opinion.
So, you know, one of the problems I would say with home, because a lot of people don't treat their home. A lot of people treat their cars with but in a car, it's hidden. You don't see it, right? But a lot of people don't treat their home because, oh, it's ugly. I mean, you look behind you. I mean, I'm sorry, but those black panels on the wall just are not very attractive looking. So AVS Forum has this great little blurb out there where they talk about diffusion panels that you can build yourself, that you can make look like whatever you want. And you go to a website like, I think Spoonflower is one of them, and you can print off whatever print you want. And then you take insulation and you stick it behind there. Now, certain types of insulation is better, and they've tested those. Onings and Corning, was it 702 is one of the high ones. Any Roxol or Rockwool type product is really good back there. You can buy a 2 foot by 4 foot, build your own frame, print off a picture of like Baby Yoda, for example, stick it back there, and then it'll still do its job. And I think that that's really important for those who are like building movie theaters. You can basically print off movie theater posters if you have the rights to it. You know, you'll have to work that out. But, you know, and you can make it look really good as well.
Well, I do have to correct you on one thing. That's Grogu behind you.
Yeah, I know. Let's be honest. Grogu's a stupid name.
I know it is. It is. It was a letdown.
It really was. It's like his name is Grogu, and you're like, we're gonna go back to. I mean, you knew it wasn't Baby Yoda; it was happening after, but it was still like Baby Yoda is such a cool name.
Yeah, for sure.
So what you're saying, Nick, is that you can hide it in the artwork, right?
And you should.
Right. But and the other thing, if you can actually put the mass loaded vinyl behind your drywall. So you hang that up and then put the drywall on top of it. So if you want to do mass loaded vinyl in the house, go ahead and rip all the drywall off your home theater room, off your critical listening room, and start tacking up mass loaded vinyl and put fresh drywall up.
Yeah, you can actually add decouplers too between your drywall and your ceiling. You can decouple it, so that way what happens is the base doesn't transfer to the room above. I mean, there's all kinds of things that you can do if you want to completely tear apart your room, but I'm assuming that we're talking about the majority of people that have what they have and they're stuck with it. Another thing to keep in mind, like if you're going to end up doing like a home theater or something, and it's the same with a car. If you end up doing hidden cubby holes in a car, sound can get trapped in those hidden cubby holes or whatever. Or if you're doing a stage for your front sound stage, or you're doing, like I did a riser in my home theater, you want to stuff that with insulation or something that's going to absorb it, because otherwise that becomes a big hollow area. Think about it just like a speaker stand. People don't want speaker stands that are hollow. Why? Because the sound can get, trapped in there, and it's not good. So you want to, anywhere you can deaden those areas.
I had a buddy named Chad. His name's Chad, and he lives in North Carolina. One of these old school meets. We went over to his house afterwards, and he had a garage 2-story. When he had it built, he done all kinds of sound treatment on the top floor. That was his movie theater room. Well, we went in there, and he had some, I can't even remember the name of the tower speakers. They were taller than me, probably about 7 foot tall, like $30,000. He worked at a home audio company, so these were on loan. But we got in there and took an iNuke, I think was the amp we were using, or it might have been a Crown. It might have been a Crown, not the iNuke. And we were beating on 15-inch, 18-inch car subwoofers in there till 3 or 4 in the morning. And that was so you could not hear it outside from where we were. And it was great. I'd invite him on here one day just to kind of talk about the sound treatment he had on that, because we had a blast.
Yeah, and a lot of people ask that. How can I basically decouple my room from another room? And unless you want to redo it, there's a lot.
And he done this while he was building, so it's a lot easier to do it at that point than it is once the room's already finished out.
Yeah, some of this is much easier to plan ahead of time. Like if you, for example, like doing that type of stuff is good when you rip everything out of the car. Like if you're going to put a brand new whole system in, you want to do your sound deadening, I would imagine then. You don't want to go back after you've done all the other stuff, right?
Right. I mean, when I was doing my sound deadening, I went ahead and ran a 0 gauge wire, took out the 8 gauge that I had in there before, ran the 0 gauge, rewired a bunch of stuff. And now it's kind of set up where I can just, plug things in if I wanted to. It'd still be a bit of a pain to climb under the back seats to do that. But, that big 0 gauge wire is more than I need. But I can just start hooking amps up. I can just add another wire to the fuse block in the back, and off I go.
So here's an interesting thought. Someone said over here, just use. It was Bobby said, just use wall to wall carpet. We're not in the 70s anymore, Bobby. We're not going to do that. But someone might. But that brings up a good point, because I was looking at some of the SQology vehicles in the past, and one of those SQology builds that I saw, they had gotten rid of all the plastic in the car and had done some, I don't know if it's vinyl. I couldn't touch it. I could only see pictures of it, but did something almost like a vinyl or something, more like a leather, probably not a vinyl, more like a leather or something that seemed to be more absorptive. And it seemed to me like that would make a lot of sense in a car where it's really, really hard, especially since you have so many windows that are going to be reflective that you really can't do much about anyway, right?
Oh, and you know what a lot of people do is they put a dash mat on their dash for this very reason, because the reflection, I mean, there's not much you can do about the windshield. The windshield and the glass, now this is why we're talking about buying Mercedes. A lot of times they use glass that is a lot more soundproof than the cheap glass or the cheaper glass. And that's what makes them so much quieter, because that's where you're losing most of your sound through the glass. Coming in through the glass.
Right. They use this multiple layered glass with something in the middle of the layers. I'm not sure what it is, but it helps keep, more than just thick glass wood, helps keep the sound out. And you can buy it aftermarket if you can find it to fit your vehicle. Like if you have a Buick and it's the same size as the Cadillac will probably fit into it.
Yeah. But if you got a Buick, you're not doing upgrades. Let's be honest here. That's not, maybe if you're like the 9th owner Buick, the guy with the vape and the backwards hat and all that.
Well, and I think that's important too, to know where your pitfalls are with whatever you're trying to deaden. Know the areas that you can't do anything about, because there's probably going to be compromises. If you have a room full of windows that's got a huge glass door on, wall to wall glass, there's nothing you can do about that. You're stuck there. Okay. Just, but you have to work with what you have.
It's been a while since I've checked the rules, but I know that most of these competition car audio sanctioning bodies, talk about the dash pad, right? Put a dash pad up on the dash. If you throw a dash pad up on the dash, it actually kicks you into like a higher class. So
I think that's true for some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. It actually works for for, it's the reflections and stuff. So it actually does help the sound. And that's just one of the ways you can treat the interior of a car. Now, I've seen some pictures on the forums of people who would go into all their body panels and stuff it with an insulation material. Have you seen that, Rob? It's like ceiling tile insulation or something.
Yes.
What the heck's up with that?
So it's a lot like, it's like speaker cabinet where you see the nice insulation inside of there. Focal actually makes a product called Black Hole.
Like a denim insulation?
Yes, a denim insulation, a very thick, heavy insulation. And that's really popular in the sound quality. I haven't used it in car yet, but I'm interested in doing that in the future for sure.
It's great for inside, like mid cavities and things of that nature, which we'll talk about later. But
yeah,
it's one of the things I put down on the list is if you're trying to like build your own speakers and you want mid cavity deadening, like that's really good to get rid of those rear waves. But yeah, and that's exactly what I'm saying. Like when I look at some of these sound quality cars, I always wonder like why aren't you doing more? And not all of them, but some of them. I wonder why don't they do more to the interior of the car? Because the interior of the car seems like a big area in which you're going to get a lot of reflections off of, right? Like if you got a plastic dash, you're going to get a lot of reflections off that. You got that fake wood stuff in there. It's going to be a lot. I mean, any type of hard surface is going to give you a lot of reflections. So I always think, well, why aren't you sucking that out if you can?
And a lot of them do that. A lot of them will cover with all the plastic body panels with suede, go in and reupholster things. Not at all uncommon to see that in those high-end sound quality cars.
I think it's a great idea. I wish every car did that.
Except when you spill something on it, then you're like, I wish this.
No, just do it with leather, man. I get all my cars I get with leather because I love that. I just wipe it off.
Don't do it with Chevy leather though, because that stuff does not hold up. I guarantee you that.
And don't do it with black leather because in the summer you'll never be able to touch anything.
Right. Well, one thing I think we should mention before we start talking about home stuff, because I'm interested in that too, but the method Justin was talking about where he covered about 30-40%. For most people, I would actually recommend that because with 30 to 40% coverage, you can get like 85% of the result. And it's going to take you double the money to get to that length where you want to be.
Right. There's diminishing returns.
Right. And it depends on how serious are you about it. If you just want the best result for the least amount of money, think about using that method. If you want it to be good for every system in the future, go ahead and pony up the money because in a car, that is a very, very big part of your sound system. You can use cheaper speakers and get a better sound if you properly treat your doors and treat your car.
And you got to be strategic about where you put the sound treatment. It's really important to put a lot of that. And this is the constrained layer damping. This is that stuff that comes with the paper. It's got a sticky back on it, and it's butyl and then aluminum foil. And there's a ton of different brand names of it. And as far as I can tell, they're mostly all the same, but we can talk about that a little bit because it's not 100% true. You want that around your door speakers where the actual cut is. It's important to put it right there. But it's putting it on panels that are curved or crimped in any way or the crease in it, not going to help as much because those are already a little bit more rigid, a little stiffer. So any big flat spot is where you definitely want to put that stuff. And if I were doing a trunk, I would weigh the lid down as much as I possibly could with that stuff because trunks are just so prone to rattle. Trunk lids are so prone to rattle. And so I want to talk about the various different brands and types. And what I mostly want to talk about is, okay, you can go to Home Depot and you can buy some stuff, and some people swear by it. And others say, no, actually get the stuff that's designed for a car. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that, Rob.
So
wow.
The peel and stick.
Wow, just pick it out like that, huh? I see how that was.
The peel and stick, what you're going to get is a very, very strong asphalt smell because it's not butyl rubber. It is asphalt based, which can work. But the peel and stick is so thin, the foil layer is very thin. It's not going to work good as a thicker car audio focused tile. Now, I can recommend some asphalt based tiles. The Matte 66 I think works very well. But if you really want to get the best result and you're willing to pony up the money, check out Stinger Roadkill, There's a few other brands like that have more expensive stuff. And I think Sonic Barrier, I believe their CLD tile is also asphalt based, but it's pretty good as well. But I know that the dual part, with the CCEA or the CCF foam and the CLD tile is 100% butyl.
I just want you to know that's exactly what I was going to say if I was asked that question. Exactly. Word for word almost. Man. Yeah.
Even with the stutter?
Well, we're not all perfect.
The problem is that the asphalt based stuff that's designed to peel and seal, right? It actually will work as a deadener. It's heavy, it sticks well. And so people buy it and they use it, but then the car gets hot, it comes off. And so it'll work. And if you're going to put some on and sell the car in a few months, sure, why not? But you really want to go with a Butyl product. And it doesn't matter if it's a aluminum foil that's black or shiny. Just make sure you're using Butyl. And I recommend getting a little bit of both. Buy the heaviest, because they come in different thicknesses. Buy some 80 or 90 mil, and then buy the other thickness, and put the heavy stuff on those flat spots. And those spots where you want some and it's hard to work with, use the thinner stuff.
So the truth is, the best stuff for any of this is concrete. We all know it.
Yeah. Concrete, and then second to that is spray expanding foam.
Yeah, inside the concrete.
Oh, you don't. I guarantee you, there's probably I bet the chat can name off at least 3 people that have a concrete SPL build.
Oh, I'm sure they have. It's crazy. I'm sure, and they can't drive it anywhere. And if they do, they get like 5 miles an hour. I mean, But
right, once you load it with concrete, it's not roadworthy anymore. It's you trailer it in and roll it into the SPL lanes. But if you're just trying to get SPL, I mean the metal just flexes too much. You've got to pour the concrete in. You've got to do the expanding foam.
I'm telling you right now, if you're going to build an outdoor subwoofer, concrete, man, I would do that in a heartbeat. That would be excellent.
Have you built a concrete subwoofer?
The subwoofer itself, no, because that'd be crazy. But I would like to build a concrete enclosure.
Even a brick one might be cool.
I'm actually
experiment with.
I'm considering building 4 of them around my pool. Concrete. So I'm serious. Yeah, with some
sonic waves, literally sonic waves.
Yeah, I think that would be really cool because I want to build an outdoor theater out there where I can just float in the pool and watch a movie. And so I think it'd be cool
when you get that finished. I want to float in the pool and watch a movie too.
I know. Yeah, and we're gonna put like the little drink things in there, where you can pass the drinks to each other. Yeah.
Oh heck yeah, dude! I'm down. I'm 100% down. Is there gonna be a grill close? Like, dude, this sounds like a dream scenario right here.
I don't know about a grill. There could be. We haven't got that far. I'm right now just doing the pergola and the sound system and everything else. So,
oh man,
it's right here right now.
I tell you what, I am curious about. Can you kind of explain? So, one of my favorite video on Toids DIY audio is where you test polyfill. People have been debating polyfill forever, and instead of debating it, you said, "Hey, I've got this stuff here. Let's just test it and see what happens." Can you kind of give people the elevator pitch on what you think about polyfill?
So here's a couple things. First of all, the basic premise of polyfill was, does it extend your low frequency response? I mean, that's basically what the question is that people say. And the real question that people ask is, does it make your box bigger? And obviously it can't make your box bigger because that would just be crazy and we'd be living in the world of a TARDIS, and that just doesn't make sense, although it's really good television. But for us, the thing is, if we put polyfill in there, will it have that same effect of building a bigger box? If you built the box too small, whatever. And the answer was yes, you could. And I showed the testing of it and all that with a very small subwoofer, just to give you an idea of what it does and doesn't do. Now, it's important to note, though, that polyfill is used in closed or sealed enclosures. I get a lot of people asking me, hey, do you put any polyfill in your ported enclosure? And the answer is no. The answer is quite a few reasons why no, but one of the most obvious reasons is it can easily blow out, right? Especially if you have a lot of air turbulence in there, you could blow it out. So instead of that, then you use something like a sonic barrier or something else to put on the inside of a ported enclosure. And on those, there's 2 things to keep in mind. First, attach it to the wall. You can staple it or you can spray glue it, and do not put it near the port. Okay. Don't block your port with the foam. Your ports aren't going to work properly. So, I mean, that's the real basic quick pitch. The big thing though, with a lot of these is to just get rid of any reflections that you have going behind the speakers. So especially in your mid-range, right? So if you got your mid-range going on, you maybe you feel like you have a muddy mid-range or something. Sometimes you can put some polyfill in there and that will get rid of some of that. But the most important thing, and someone asked earlier, and I can't think of who it was, but it was Dylan Best. Dylan Best said, hey, what do you use on the interior subwoofer box? And I would say that more important than putting sound deadening in a subwoofer enclosure is actually deaden the subwoofer enclosure itself. So make sure that you're using a lot of bracing. Make sure that if you need a double front baffle, use a double front baffle. You should be able to knock on that, and you should not be hearing, echoes. You should be rock solid sounding. And if you do that, then you shouldn't have to worry so much about that bass becoming problematic from the enclosure itself.
Yeah, and I think people get the polyfill confused with, like you're saying, there is kinds that are fleeced, where you can staple them onto the side of your enclosure.
Yeah, like denim insulation.
Right. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Justin. You have something to add?
So I the last ported enclosure I did put polyfill in it. I used the sheets of polyfill. I staple it to the inside of the enclosure, and I did that mostly because I wanted to see how that affected the sound and if I liked it or not. And so my question is, does it do anything at all? So it does break up some standing waves. The question is it even effective in a subwoofer? And the answer is probably not.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research done on this, and the general consensus is that it really doesn't make a huge difference. There's people that'll argue with you on that, and that's up to you. If you want to put it in there, it's not going to hurt anything unless you put it in the middle of, in the way of your port. So I never tell anyone don't put it in there. If you want to put it in there, do it. Try it out. I've had people that built the dynas that absolutely swear by it in the dynas, and they just use it in the subwoofer cavity. Okay. I mean, and part of that's where's your subwoofer playing into too. Like where are you crossing your subwoofer at? Like if you're getting mid-range in your subwoofer as well, then maybe then maybe that would make a difference as well. But the most important thing first is deadening that cabinet first. So brace it properly, build it well. Then CSS sent me the CSX SDX12, the best brace subwoofer cabinet I've come across to date. The box itself for this 12-inch subwoofer and passive radiator, it's got a cutout for 12-inch subwoofer and two 12-inch passive radiators, and the box still weighs 70 some pounds. It's only 2 cubic feet or 2.5, somewhere in that range. It's crazy. But they did an amazing job deadening that thing, and it shows when you listen to it. When you listen to it, it is crystal clear.
Yeah, and see you later, D.
See
Work
ya.
on some video, bro. We need a new Willie Williston video. But the biggest difference I've noticed in the polyfill is like in a transmission line or a quarter wave enclosure. That has helped me, like when I've built one. If my tuning's a little bit off and it's not just perfect, I can sometimes substitute it with the polyfill on the wall, the denim insulation or whatever I have on hand.
And just to clarify, so if you're talking about like a transmission line, it's a little bit different. Transmission line almost, they'll even give you an idea of how much stuffing you should want and should need because of the way that that's designed. It's a little bit different than what we're talking about with just a standard ported or sealed box, which I should just say. Go ahead, Justin. You want to say something?
I was going to talk about the transmission line. My home theater speakers, I've mentioned before, the Tritrix, and they recommend, and it comes in the kit, and you stuff it in the kit. And the first time I've stuffed it in the transmission line, it's like I have no idea if it's right or not. Put the stuff in the hole. Let's hope it works. I'm kind of curious about all the other things you might use besides polyfill inside of an enclosure. Like I think the brand name is Rock Wool. It's mineral wool insulation. You mentioned that's a good sound deadener to sound treat your walls. You said hide that behind the artwork. What does Rock Wool do? I see people putting Rock Wool inside enclosures on YouTube, and I'm looking at it going, what's it do?
Well, it's the same thing. It's just going to try to break up your standing waves in the back and grab those so that they don't reverberate around the enclosure, right? I mean, that's the whole basis of doing that. And we already talked about how certain materials will do certain different frequencies. I've never seen anyone put Rockwell. I mean, insulation used to be really popular. Just that pink fiberglass insulation used to be very popular in builds, but I haven't seen anyone really do that. The thing that I find most interesting, though, while we talk about this, is if you open up, just say an inexpensive pair of speakers. And when I say inexpensive, like under $2,000 a piece, a pair or something like that. So under $1,000 a piece. Oftentimes you don't see any of this stuff that we're talking about done. You don't see, and I can't say every time because that's not true, but oftentimes you don't. You see, and like Klipsch, for example. A lot of times when you open up Klipsch, you see an open, empty cavity with like no, nothing going on, no sound deadening in there, no. And subwoofers too. Nothing going on.
Bracing.
No bracing at all. Yeah, absolutely no bracing. 4 corners, maybe some in the corners just to be like, careful that it doesn't blow it apart, but very, very little. And so I find that interesting. And that's one of the reasons why I do like DIY, especially in those less expensive speakers, because you can build the enclosure properly, which will make a huge difference on your final end product itself. Like the uglies, for example, the uglies are a completely dead cabinet. They're awesome dead, and it shows when you listen to the bass on those. It's phenomenal, and it sounds great.
And recently, I'm more of a plywood cabinet building guy, but in my opinion, MDF overall is better for the density. I think that you need to brace a little bit more on plywood to get that kind of sound that you want, or that deadness, versus MDF. But there's a lot of disadvantages to MDF. So I'm saying this as a 100% plywood enclosure builder now.
So Get Some Gaming brought up a good point. He said Rockwell will reduce cabinet volume. Now, I'm not sure how much or what it does, but there is a difference between open cell and closed cell. If you get closed cell foam, it will reduce your cabinet volume, and you have to pay attention to that when you're building a speaker. A lot of people use open cell foam when they do this because it not that it doesn't make a difference, but the minimal. So I would definitely keep that in mind when you're looking at these, and that's why we talked about some of the brands that we use. So keep that in mind as well.
And I've actually tried a bunch of CLD tiles inside of cabinet, a subwoofer cabinet, just to see what it would do, and it doesn't do anything but fall off later.
Wait, what are you talking about?
CLD tiles.
Oh.
They constrain, the butyl rubber, and they don't stick to the wood very good at all, no matter how well you prepare it, and they will fall off eventually, and they don't do nearly anything compared to what just polyfill will do.
Yeah.
So polyfill, rock wool, the denim, anything like that, it's all going to do the exact same thing, and it's all about the standing waves.
Yeah, and that's why I told you to take a look at that Ethan Weiner. He goes through different ones and shows you how even different materials will react differently and what frequencies it does, and he plays different clips and shows you. It's a really good video. I mean, if you're interested in sound treatment, I really appreciate what he does and what he did there in that video. So I don't know, it's definitely worth watching. And this is always the same thing. I tell people, hey, this is where I think a measurement microphone is so important in your room, in your car, and whatever. People always say, well, Nick, you're always pushing measurement microphone. No, I'm not. It's just, I want you to be able to quantify what you're listening to and what you're hearing, the difference. And I'll tell you, if you buy sound and Rob, you can say this, if you put those in the wrong spot, it doesn't have the same effect. But if you put them in the right spot, it makes a big difference. So even that microphone, just to tell you, hey, am I putting these in the right spots, is important.
Yeah, for sure. 100%.
I'm a big fan of picking up, even if it's just something like the little cheap IMM6, and doing a before and after, if nothing else.
Yeah.
Right? If you're gonna do a before and after, you're gonna sound dead in your vehicle. Give me a before, give me an after. Because how do you know it's working if you don't measure before and after?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess if you're just doing a completely subjective, I think it sounds better, but then you're subject to the effects of the money you spent, and there's always, if you don't have data, then you're very wishy-washy. You don't know exactly if it's a real effect. It's psychoacoustics that our friends with Bose might preach.
Yeah. Well, people always make fun of Bose, and I understand why. But you know what? Bose sold a lot of equipment, a lot of things. So maybe they're onto something too. And
yeah,
I always say that because if a company does a really good job selling something for whatever reason, you should look into why instead of always just make fun of them. Because maybe there's something that they know about sound that we're missing. I don't know. Or maybe they just are really good marketers. But you have to come to that conclusion yourself.
That's why I take the the CCA thing in stride. That's go ahead, keep talking about me. It's all part of my Bose plan.
So here's one we didn't mention earlier, and it popped up in the chat a couple of times, and it's more of a car audio thing, but you could use it in a home speaker, and that's fast rings. So Nick, are you familiar with this product?
I used to be fast skater at the roller rink. Is that what you're talking? I don't know.
Rob knows what they are.
Yeah. They're it's a 3-piece foam situation. You have one that goes on the back wall directly where the subwoofer or the driver is firing into. And it's, I don't know, they're like 4 inches thick, something like that. And then you have a ring that goes behind the driver that kind of guides that to the big piece, and then you have one that guides it through your panel. So it's the big one that goes all the way around the driver, and it goes right up against your panel in your car.
And Rob is right. They're pretty thick, thicker than they need to be. And the intention is that you will measure and test fit and trim them down to size. And the idea is to try to replicate the look and the hopefully sound that most factory speakers have, where they couple the driver to the door panel on inside the door, and then there's that piece on the back that sticks to the door that's going to catch the back wave, and you got to trim that down as well, because if you don't, it's going to snag on the power window on your windows.
Right, it's happened before. And if you don't trip so I've done this. Don't do this. I have put the full width on the front, and it's actually damaged my speaker on a build because I did not trim enough, and I thought it was close enough. I didn't look with the flashlight, and it bent itself in, so it was hitting the cone of the speaker. So don't do that. Make sure you trim them, use the light, make sure everything's good to go. But yeah, have you used them, Justin? I like them. I think they work well.
I mean, I would love to use the exact same speaker with and without it. I would love to. I wish I would have done a test where I would have put the speaker in and then listened to it for a few days and took some measurements and then took the door panel off, then put take the speaker out and then put the fast ring on. But I was happy with it. It seemed to do the job. It wasn't that hard to use, and they weren't terribly expensive. I mean, what are fast rings? Are less than $20 or $12-15?
I think it's $18 for a set for your front doors.
A pair, right? And so you buy $20 worth of that. And my feeling on sound deadener and sound treatment in a car, if you're looking at a $300 set of components, don't buy a $200 set of components and spend $100 on sound treatment.
Yeah, always sound.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point. Is where do you want to start with these things? And I would tell you, if you're DIYing your own subwoofer box or whatever, start with bracing first. Bam, bracing. Get as good at bracing as you can, and then worry about whether because you can always add lining to it later if you feel like that may or may not help. But you're not going to get great bracing later. I mean, you can maybe cut up some dowels and stuff to put in there, but in general, it's going to be a lot harder to do that bracing later. So start there. And I think the same with, speaker building as well.
And when I think about trying to sound treat your room so you can get rid of those nulls and bass traps and stuff and get rid of all the echoes, a great place to start is just put some furniture in the room, which you're going to do anyways, right? I mean, your home theater listening couch or chairs or whatever the case may be, that's going to make a big difference just compared to an empty room.
Well, and also while we're talking about these types of things too, sometimes speaker placement is one of those things that people are concerned with because your speaker placement does affect your sound treatment Okay. So you need to also, and so what I would tell people, especially in your home, is to sit down where you're going to be sitting. And if it's going to be different, put a piece of furniture there, raise it up, whatever, and check where your speakers are going to be as well. And then you're also going to be able to get a better idea of not only sound treatment, but also where you want your speakers placed.
Yeah, for sure. The way I done this room is it's a little hacky, but this is what I done. I took one of those foam boards that you get from like the Dollar Tree.
Oh yeah.
And I put 6 towels on it. And I would put it up with pins in a certain spot in the room. And then I would take my mic on my phone with a lavalier plugged in. And I would do, mic check 1, 2, 3, mic check 1, 2, 3. I'd move it a little bit, and then I'd listen back with headphones until I got it just right. Because it's very important. If you just start slapping up this sound treatment on your walls, trying to get rid of echoes, you're not going to be serving yourself well. You definitely need to know where you want to put it.
Absolutely. Yeah, you don't want to just willy-nilly and throw it up there. I mean, it's not saying that it may or may not help, but
you're not going to get your bang for the buck if you don't.
Yeah, you're basically closing your eyes and throwing it at a dartboard, which that only works if you have Mark Rober's really awesome dartboard that just follows the dart. And
hey, now don't mention other YouTubers here. We don't need any competition. That guy already gets 1 million views per video. So I mean,
1 million views per video. He gets like 5 million per video. He's got like 30 million subscribers. Everyone here knows him. It doesn't matter, and he's cool.
No, I never heard
I
of
like
him.
him.
No one knows who this guy is. No, I'm kidding. Yeah. He's
wasn't he like an engineer at NASA at one time?
That's what he says.
Yeah.
That's what he says. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I guess.
I mean,
that's what's more a little salt on it. It's a little salty there, isn't he?
I know it feels that way. Like, let's be honest. I feel like at this point in time, with as many million viewers now, if he wasn't by now, someone would have probably called him out by now. But either way, it doesn't matter.
Now, here's a question, and I want to answer it. Does fiberglass resin coated as a hardener on the inside of an MDF enclosure help out at all? In my opinion, no.
Can't see why. Yeah.
It might help to seal the enclosure or something, but why are you getting water inside of your MDF enclosure? I don't think it makes the enclosure any stronger. What you got to remember about resin is resin doesn't really work well to make things stronger unless it's impregnated into a fabric of some type. The two things work together in order to provide strength. And fiberglass itself is not terribly strong when it's on a flat panel. Just like earlier when I was talking about you got to put your CLD tiles, your butyl tiles on a flat panel. To get real strength in fiberglass, you need curves. And so, there are people who will fiberglass the inside of their box, and it's like, good for you. I don't know that did any good. And I'd love to know y'all's thoughts on that.
I don't see why it would. I mean, you've taken what was absorptive at one time and made it not absorptive anymore. So I can't see why it would. I mean, you take a cotton cloth, for example, it's absorptive to a certain degree. Now, how good, who knows, I'm sure it's not great, but now you've covered it in resin, which has now become a really hard surface. So I can't see why it would be.
No, I mean, it'll seal the inside of your enclosure for air leaks if you want to do that. Now, on the outside of your enclosure, if you use an MDF, sure, because now you're waterproofing it. And you're helping it with the moisture. But as far as like making it stronger, I don't think so. Unless someone's going to have a good argument, and I would love to hear it because I don't see how it would help.
Yeah, so a lot of SPL guys are literally just using resin inside an enclosure, no cloth. In my opinion, wasted time and effort. That's Power Hog Audio. Sounds like it.
Use braces, like Nick said.
Use braces, yeah. Seems like a much better idea. Yeah, people, I feel like, and I I've thrown this out there, but I feel a lot of car audio builders don't do a great job bracing their boxes. And when I say that, I mean, and you know what? I should say home audio too, because it's true in home audio too. And when I say that, I should be really talking about more subwoofers than anything else. You see a lot of people just build a big old box with like no bracing at all and be done with it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I do. Oh God.
I was going to say that. Yeah, I think it's a lot of younger people are getting in. They're new to the hobby. They come into cardio. I think that's a lot of it. And I'll tell you one thing that kind of bugs, like if you're doing double baffles, it's nice to have the subwoofer inset. That does look nice, but I would rather you just have that subwoofer on the outside, because this is where you're coupling your subwoofer to the enclosure. Go ahead and have it on the outside of the double baffle, even though it still helps having it on when it's inset.
See, I like it inset because it's more protective, you know?
Yeah, but
I think inset just looks better. But I agree with Rob, because you're making another hole in the outer baffle, and then it's like, I can see how that's going to weaken what you've got. But I agree with Rob from the standpoint of the physics. But I'm going to inset mine because I think it looks better.
Yeah, I mean, it helps either way. But if I'm doing it, I'd almost rather put a third baffle on to inset it, just so I have that double. Because at that point now you can use very large screws if you're not going to use some kind of insert in there. Threaded insert.
Yeah, use something like a T-nut. I like T-nuts. Right. Depending on what I need. I mean, if it's a small little 12-inch subwoofer, that's getting, who cares? But T-nuts on, especially some of the bigger, more power-hungry ones, they're nice to have.
Yeah, T-nuts are great if you can get them to bite. In plywood, very good. MDF, it's tough to get them to bite in. A lot of times they want to break off, but
I almost always what I'll end up doing is I'll screw them down ahead of time before I put the subwoofer in, and then if I need to, I'll dab some glue on there just to kind of keep it in place, because you only really need it there, while you're screwing it in. Once it's there, it's there.
Yep.
Yeah, I think in general, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to tell you a lot of different things with this type of scenario, because unfortunately everyone's room is a little different too. So, and car. And so there's going to be some cars that are going to need more and need less. But I think if you take a look at what we said in general and apply it, I think they're pretty good tips overall.
Yeah, I don't think we let anybody astray.
Is there anything on Sound Deadener that we haven't covered that y'all want to bring up before we move on to our next thing?
No, but I do want to say I've never built a fiberglass enclosure. I'd like to build a fiberglass enclosure sometime. I think that'd be cool. I want to build a fiberglass speaker. I think that'd be neat.
I will be fiberglassing at some point this summer. As soon as I have some free time off work, I'm going to dive into the fiberglass.
I mean, I just want a fiberglass. I don't want any MDF on the outside. I just want some bracing and some fiberglass. Make something cool, maybe like Rob's head or something. Yeah, it'd be cool. Like 2 little speakers here and a big subwoofer.
Perfect, man. That'd win the build off for sure.
Yes, as long as I can wax the head.
I've built a fiberglass enclosure before with a front wood panel, not on my channel, but for inset in the Mazda 6 that I had. It was one of the very first systems I put in there.
What was the next part, Justin?
Well, the next thing is the question of what have y'all got coming up next on your channels?
Toids.
So I just got a topping E30 in, so I'm going to go ahead and do a review on that. That's a DAC. For those who are not familiar, topping E30. Topping is a pretty good brand. Typically, I don't know much about them. I did get some speakers in that I was not happy with that I was going to review. I contact the company. I'm going to let them decide how they respond, and you will or will not see those on the channel. I don't know. That's up to them.
Let me ask a question real quick. Why do I need a DAC? And when would I use one?
Like a digital to analog converter?
You don't need a DAC, but a lot of other people do need a DAC. A DAC is just a digital analog converter. So it's got a bunch of different functions. But for example, one of the functions that you may want one for, and there's a lot of reasons why you might want one, but one reason is if you build like a hi-fi amplifier, well, they need a preamp. So a DAC is often also a preamp. So it's a preamp and a converter. So you now have volume control and things of that nature. But it also, some of your units will only have certain connections, and the DAC will also convert those, and they'll do it at a much higher rate or bit rate. So you can get high fidelity such as FLAC and things of that nature that you can't get just with necessarily a normal device. So those are some of the reasons. It all depends on what you're trying to get and use it out of. But a good DAC is important for a lot of people, I think. But those that know that they need one already know.
If you're using a lot of digital files and you're trying to get a high quality system, you definitely want a DAC. And you can't have optical out in a car audio without a DAC.
Yeah, and this and although this, what I find interesting is this topping is actually 5 volt, and I thought that was pretty interesting because you could actually power it with anything, right? I mean, you could put it in a car if you really wanted to. What else do I have going on? I have a couple other things going on. I mean, I have the Cartesian build that I'm working on. I have the CSS sub that I'm working on. I'm trying to do something a little special with the CSS sub. I got another build going on with a guitar amplifier. I was hoping to have that done this week. Didn't get it finished. This is my very first time ever designing and building. When I say guitar amplifier, it's like the guitar amplifier speaker combo. And so I'm trying to take my time with it to make sure that it comes out sounding decent, because I'm going to have someone else play and listen. I don't play music, so I don't know. I won't know until it's finished if it'll sound good or not. And I really won't know until I get someone else's opinion that plays guitar, whether it sounds good. But I'm going to try to make it a convertible, so it'll be both sealed, and also you can take the back off to then make it also an open back as well. So like I said, it's taken me a lot longer.
Yeah, for sure. I have another top 10 of sort video coming out soon. I've got to film a few parts to get that done. I've got 12V Talk. We have a special guest on that Justin might be interested in Wednesday. I'm not going to announce it here, so you guys will see Wednesday. And obviously reverse polarity. And I'm going to do some video for SQology. I got some videos, some pictures, and I think it'll be a good little walk of the show.
I was really curious about that. I was wondering if you got any good footage at SQology and what you could kind of show from that. For those who don't know, SQology is a group that's hosting shows. And so there's two main sanctioning bodies for contest are there, and it's their show, but SQology is one who puts it on. Does that make sense, Rob? I don't know if that makes any sense. I think I did a bad job describing it.
Yep, that is it. There's three bodies or governing bodies: Mecca, IASCA, and Emma, which is a new one. And then SQology is the show host. So Cliff and Ben do that. And it was very good. They actually served us barbecue on Saturday from Dickie's Barbecue down in Texas.
Oh, really Dickie's. Good. Yeah,
man. So
wait, it's just like the normal Dickie's, or is that a special chain? That's the chain Dickie's?
No.
It's not the chain?
It's the chain. Yeah. It's not special. Oh. It's the chain. Yeah.
Okay.
SQology has a fantastic podcast. I couldn't recommend a podcast more than that one, except for the Sound Advice podcast,
which you just listened to.
Right.
So, Justin, what do you have going on your channel?
So I've been meaning to get around to doing some videos on speaker design, specifically on how to use WinISD, a nice good WinISD tutorial, and then along with that, taking the output from WinISD and jumping into SketchUp and drawing up a box, kind of showing how I build a box in SketchUp. And luckily, one of my patrons had sent me a message and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this. I'm trying to make this box fit in this tight space. What do I do?" And I said, "You know what? I need to make a video on it. So I'll just see if we can, I'll see if I can help you out." That's just one of those things. If a patron sends me a message and says, "Hey, I need help with something," I'm going to help a patron out because I don't have time to help everybody who shoots me a message of some type and says, "Hey, I'm trying to do something. What can you do to help me out?"
I felt that jab when you said, "Is this the best WinISD video ever?" I think so. And I'm like, whoa, come on, man.
I wasn't jabbing at you.
No, I was like, dang, I don't know if I'm coming on tonight or not.
I definitely wasn't jabbing at you. I was just trying to be clickbaity is all. If you know. Clickbait title, you get a little more play. So, and that video's out there and it's doing pretty well, I think. Interestingly enough, I had a commenter who said that they liked your video better because you went through the entry of the parameters slower and described it. And I didn't. I kind of glossed over that. And I'm thinking I glossed over it because I know Nick did a fine job explaining how to enter the parameters. Why do I need to make a video doing the same thing?
I honestly don't care. And I think it's good that there's more videos on WinISD. I think it's a great program for most people to use. And honestly, a lot of car audio people don't watch my channel. So it makes a lot of sense for you to do that because, I think it's, for me, building a good box, a lot of times subwoofers and speakers get a bad name, but it's not a subwoofer speaker necessarily. It's because you didn't know how to design a good box or build one.
Right. Or you bought a really crappy prefab off Amazon made out of 5/8 MDF and your woofer tore it apart.
I never worked at Wendy's.
But I've got a couple of videos kind of in that series, and I've got a couple of ideas of videos I need to crank out. I'm trying to get back into I had a schedule for a while, and I got out of my schedule. And so typically what I like to do is have a video out there for my patrons early access on a Friday, the same day I drop a video for everybody else. And I need to get back in my swing of things. So.
Yeah. We lost Nick. He's dead.
No, I just didn't know that I was supposed to respond to that. He just said I need to get back in the swing.
You got to feel in, man.
Hey, you know what? I think it's a great analogy for the beginning of baseball season, which opens up on the 1st, and Justin's getting in the swing of things. So it works out really well. Justin's like, what is he talking about? Why do we care about baseball? No, you know what? I have really stopped really watching a lot of sports because of COVID and everything else, and I'm growing up and whatever. But I do like baseball a lot. And I'll say, man, ever since COVID, though, sports have kind of died.
Yeah. They've been on the downswing, but I will tell you that the Arkansas Razorbacks are in the Elite Eight. So we ain't playing games this year. We're playing games, basketball games, but we're winning them this time.
All I heard was crickets. This is the first year I haven't watched that. This is the first year I haven't watched March Madness tournament. We almost always me and my wife do a friendly bet every year. And neither of us watch college basketball throughout the season. So it's a toss up on who wins. We just research and then we're like, oh, we'll bet you. And then we bet something stupid that we all get, like a nice night out to dinner and whoever pays or picks the place or whatever. We didn't even do that this year.
All right. I think we're good, Justin.
Well, all right. We are this is the Sound Advice live stream and podcast, and we will see y'all on the next adventure.
Later.